Hello and welcome to the United Film Podcast. My name is Greg Randolph. I'm a writer and director from Boston, Massachusetts. This podcast is an opportunity for me to tell you about filmmakers currently active in the UK from around the world. Today, I'm happy to have Daniela Stephan on the podcast. Daniela is a writer and director from Beirut, Lebanon. We discuss her grad film, The Sun Sets on Beirut, which has been part of many well-regarded film festivals, including Interfilm Berlin, Linz International Film Festival, Tripoli Film Festival, and Tampere Film Festival. We met at London Film School, where she graduated with an MA in filmmaking. We discussed the difficulties developing her next short film called Jellyfish that she is planning to shoot in Lebanon. Interestingly, her younger sister Corinna will be cinematographer for that film. Enjoy! Daniela Stephan, welcome to the United Filmmaker Podcast. How are you?
I'm great, Greg. It's finally overdue.
I know, my God. Yeah, it's been a long time. We've been talking about doing the podcast, and I'm happy you're here. We're in a new location, and so it's all new stuff, but it's good stuff because there's a lot to talk about. You are a London Film School alumni. I met you at Student Union Rentals at 24 Shelton Street with your sister.
Yes.
And this was probably like 2 years ago, maybe. Right? Do you remember that?
Yes, I completely remember that. And for some reason, since then, every time I see you, I don't relate to that memory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I know. Yeah, it was funny. It was like, I just remember, I think Corinna had been talking about you, your sister.
Yeah.
And I think you were renting some gear or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, two sisters here in London from Lebanon. Like, I got to know them. This is just like a really cool, like... And so I guess that's maybe a good way to start is... So you went to school before your sister Corinna, right? You were a couple terms ahead of her, I believe.
Yeah, we're 3 years apart,
cool.
So I was 3 years ahead of her.
Nice. And that's my question. Before we get into the whole like backstory and everything like that, is what? Because it's just like I was just something that popped in my head when I was thinking about what we should talk about for the podcast. When you were looking, and I've read a little bit about it in your Q&As online and things like that, but what was it that drew you to LFS? Like, I'm curious about where you were coming from. It kind of gets us to the beginning of the story, but I'd like to hear that.
So I'm gonna start by saying that I'm someone who works a lot on autopilot.
Yeah.
So I sometimes do things without really thinking so much, and LFS was one of them. I knew it was a great school. I wanted to leave Lebanon at that point, and try to find myself somewhere else, so I speak French, so I didn't want to go to a country that, the first language was French. I wanted to get out of my comfort zone completely. And I saw that the London Film School was a great school, and I applied, and I got in, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm not someone who like study things so much, so I didn't think like, oh, this is an amazing school because of that. Not really. I thought, okay, it's a good school, and I'm excited to do a master's, and I need to leave the country. And as you know, if you're Lebanese, you have to do a master abroad in order to leave the country. Otherwise, you have no really like roots to leave.
Sure.
So for me, it was not a choice. Like, I didn't think, do I need a master or not? No, I'm like, I'm going to do a master, and I need to settle somewhere else because I wanted to at that point. And it was, to be honest, a great experience.
Yeah.
The London Film School was really, really, and my term especially, was we were really like close to each other. We would help each other. We would read each other's scripts. Even till now, a lot of my friends, we send each other scripts. We send each other like feedback. So it's quite, even though we're like really far away in the world, so everyone like went around, but I feel like I was really lucky with my term and with the people I met there, and I since then, so I think that's a bit how it happened.
Cool.
But how I went into films originally.
Yeah. That was my next question.
Yeah. So again, when I was a kid, I wasn't like a big cinephile or anything. I didn't grow up to like the big movies. I only used to watch with my family things like, I don't know if you know it, but Louis de Funès. Like it's like this French comic or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like if you want, like, it's quite funny. But you used to watch it on Sundays, or Sound of Music.
Yeah.
Or my first big films, you might have read that in the interview, was Christian F.
Yes, I was looking at that. I would love for you to tell me a little bit about what that film is like.
Yes, so Christian F, I watched it when I was 13,
right.
In secret,
yeah.
because I found the DVD in our house.
I think we all have those movies that are like kind of like you didn't, you know, it's something that is maybe a little bit too racy, or you don't want your parents to know about, or this or that. And it's funny, you have a funny story about it that I read about.
Yeah,
so yeah, continue.
Yeah. No, it's really funny because it like explains a lot of also the type of cinema that I like to do, this specific story. And Christian F, the film is called in French, Moi Christian F, drogué prostituée, which means me Christian F, drugged prostitute, which is at 13 years old, which is quite but the title is only Christian F, so I didn't know what to expect. And I used to pretend that I was sick a lot as a kid because I hated school. I have an allergy on school. I was a really bad student. I really hated it. So when I pretended to be sick, and I watched the film in secret at that time, and I was so shocked. But at the same time, I think it was the first time I realized how cinema can impact societies, because basically the film is about this 13-year-old, but it also speaks about the drug issue in Berlin, and that affects a lot of young people, and the whole like rave culture and all of these. And it's just like, for me it was the only, and I had never been to Germany at that point, and for me it was the first, you know, window into Germany and Berlin.
Cool.
So after, and then like a couple of years later, I told my mom that I had watched this film when I was 13, and she told me that she had watched it as well when she was 13. And I thought, wow, like, you know, my mom had a life before me. You know, it was that kind of moment. And it also speaks about like the intergenerational trauma between a daughter and her mother. And I just like, I love the story because it explains a lot about a lot of things for me. It was like a kind of like a pivotal moment.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those movies. I'm gonna have to throw it on and watch it, because the way you spoke about it in the interviews and everything like that just sounds like, I totally get what you're saying. Like that, like it kind of just sparked something that made you really want to go after it. And but it also that it connected you with your family. Yeah, which is like that's what I imagine. Like that's what we want to do, right? We would love to make a film that does that type of thing. Now it's not. It's dealing with difficult subjects. You know what I mean? It's not something that's just cheery and on the and surface level. You know, it deals with those things in an interesting way. It sounds like, so I got to check it out. It sounds like a good recommendation.
Yeah, and if I can add, it also spoke about the post-war Berlin. Yeah. And at the time where I'm born at the post-Civil War Lebanon, and I kind of related to these like young children who are so lost, and like, even though it doesn't speak about that, but it kind of has this, you know, underlining tone, and I think it spoke to me in that sense as well. Totally. And I rewatched the film recently. It is a great film.
Sometimes it's interesting. Some get better as they go along. Some kind of fade out a little bit, but it's really assuring when you watch a movie that you haven't seen in a really long time, and it's like, ooh, it still packs that punch that it did. That's tough to do, you know what I mean? It's tough to, decades later, still have that same impact. There's movies that do it really well, and there's some movies that kind of fall by the wayside with it, but that's cool. So I'll have to check it out. There's a million directions we can go off the back of that conversation. I think there's things to talk about because I immediately was reminded of your grad film, The Sun Sets on Beirut. But because, and the reason is that because it's got, if I may, it's the story about it's the the port explosion in 2020, and it deals with the character having lost their cat in the explosion, and they're looking for the cat, and it's there's something to it with the loss of innocence, I guess, in a way, in like kind of a profound way. And I want to get there. But I think there's some things to talk about in regards to the journey. You've told me a little bit about London Film School, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about, you grew up in Beirut.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about a little bit about what it was like growing up in Beirut, and more about family life, and just you've kind of given me that story about what sparked filmmaking, but I'd like to hear more about Beirut and where because it sounds like it holds a very strong place in your heart.
Yeah.
And you go back quite often. And to put this on top, this is all stuff that's coming to me now. I've had the pleasure of at least helping guide you producing wise in making your next short film in Beirut, Jellyfish. So with that being said, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your love of the city.
Yes, Beirut has a very big place in my heart, but also in the way I view films and the way I make films. I lived my whole life in Lebanon, and until I came to the UK for the London Film School, so 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So up until then, I had never lived anywhere else. And so it's a place so growing up there was fun, extremely, extremely fun, but also it was fun because of how other parts of life were complicated. So
I get that.
So when other parts of your life are more unstable, complicated, and the first explosion I've ever seen, I was 15 years old.
Corinna tells me some very profound stories about living in Lebanon and living in Beirut during this time. But continue. Sorry.
It was a great. It was a weird time. My generation. I'm speaking at the kids who were born in the 90s, because they're born. So the civil war ended in the 90. So afterwards, it was almost like the after-war generation kind of feel. So it's this, these kids who are born, and they're not really born into the civil war, but they're born into an environment where everyone wants to rebuild and have a future. And, the economy is kind of booming at points within that time. And then you have the first war in 2006 that I have lived, and the end of the Syrian occupation in the 2000s. So it's a place and also the Israeli occupation. So it's a place within the world that has a lot of baggage and history and occupations, massacres, and all of this. But at the same time, it's quite a very common life that I had with my parents, and that's what I find so interesting about films, that it can put you into the shoes of someone that you can relate to, but within a context that sometimes you don't understand. And I find this extremely
well said.
Extremely pointy, and the power of cinema is there, as in feeling for these characters, and then understanding that people just like you can have circumstances that are very different. So I think it was, especially my teenage years, these are the years that I remember most, because they were extremely fun. I was quite a rebel kid, so I would escape school a lot. My mom would spend her time trying to find where I am. I was in 2 different schools. My second school was a Catholic school where I had to wear a costume, and it was its own kind of thing. And I think I learned a lot about life in that sense, because there is a lot of survival in Beirut, in young kids, and in them trying to understand what their parents have been through. Because the civil war was quite bloody, and so when you're born out of parents who have lived these experiences, you're constantly, whether you like it or not, asking questions about your identity, and especially that we were colonized by the French as well. So we speak French, but then we speak sometimes more French than Arabic, and who are we? And it's a really identity crisis throughout your life. But I think up until now, it's my favorite city in the world, because it holds this energy that is incomparable. People are generous, people are beautiful, they're full of history, they're full of complexity. Nothing is black and white in Beirut. Everything holds a lot of complexity, and it's something that I really admire. And that's something that today in the social media age we lack a lot. Everything has become extremely black or extremely white. Nothing
kind
is
of modernized or something like that, and I get the feeling that it's like it loses some of that feeling of home or whatever it might be.
It will always be home. I consider myself still living there in some ways, because all my films are also about Beirut. I like being in London because it gives me like this safe cocoon where I'm hiding while writing. And I already have Beirut in my heart and in my memories, so I don't necessarily need to be there all the time. But yeah.
Yeah, you said some interesting things just to top off that conversation about in regards to, what do you call it? This, not allegiance, but this kind of like, when you talk about Beirut, you talk about it so fondly, and this idea of like leaving Beirut as a little bit like heartbreaking in a way, because, and I understand your filmmaking and your insistence and want to make films in Beirut, because it's not about championing the city or the country, but it's about like not figuring it out as well, but like being part of that history that potentially gets the city to another place, or allows it to see itself in a new way. I thought that was really interesting. Maybe I'm not saying that exactly right, but I thought there was something interesting in that writing, and that was talking about a little bit of that not upset, but like kind of fearfulness of leaving it, and like leaving it behind in some way or something like that. And I totally get what you mean there. And then coming to London and having that ability to kind of reflect like that. I remember you were saying that in the writing as well. You were talking a little bit about that's what's made London so valuable, is that you can't really, it's hard to get that moment sometimes in Beirut to have that ability to reflect and write and coming here. So I think you've created a very nice situation for yourself to make films and potentially really say something no one's said before, about where you're from.
Yeah. I mean, you've touched on really two important things here. First of all is making films in Lebanon and the history of Lebanon, because so I don't know if you know, but the history books in Lebanon have stopped in the First World War. That's what we like teach us in school, and that's really dangerous, because we haven't had like a proper history book that we teach the kids about the Civil War, and so history is bound to repeat itself, and this is where cinema comes in.
Exactly.
And that's why in Lebanon specifically, and also I'm sure a lot of other countries that struggle with the same problems, but speaking about Lebanon, it's extremely important to have cinema, because it like speaks to the history, but from a personal level. And so it put us all under the same umbrella.
And we can see it. We can see for our own eyes this port explosion, the things that were happening in your grad film, in the sunsets in Beirut. We can see those things with our own eyes, as opposed to potentially a description of it, or there's something so with cinema and with film, it's just there's so much that you see what you get in some ways, and so much more. That's it's and I think I want to talk about the sunsets of Beirut in depth, because of the documentary kind of angle, or the docu-esque kind of way you talked about it, and I think you even introduced yourself kind of this just, it's not a lack of planning, but kind of you said the story in the sunsets in Beirut, the story kind of superset the perfect cinematography of it. You wanted to kind of show the fringes and the outside edge of it, and I thought that was all really interesting stuff. And I think it speaks to what we're talking about right now in regards to your view of your city and your country,
especially for this film, for the sunset on Beirut. I'm just going to give maybe for your audience a bit of a synopsis.
Cool.
It's a story that happens after the port explosion of 2020, and it speaks about a girl in her mid-20s who is lost between staying and leaving, and with her best friend Ghadi, she roams the city to find her lost cat. And her best friend is more interested in having a sexual relationship with the British journalist. So he tries to seduce her. So it has a bit of like a comic tone in some places. But then they're trying to discover exactly what has been taken from them, and it's quite like an exploration of that question of how could you have taken so much from us a bit. But it comes from, I don't know if you knew this, but it is a true story. I lost my cat.
Yes, I've heard a little bit, but continue.
Yes, so on the 4th of August when the explosion happened, we lost my cat for 3 days. I couldn't find her. And when I came back to Beirut, so I came 2 days later, I was looking for my cat, and we found him, we found her. I don't know why I'm saying him or it, whatever. But like 4 days later. And during that time, so I had written a completely different script for the London Film School grad film. It was completely different. It was about 3 young kids roaming the streets of Beirut, and I had my locations a bit planned, and basically all the locations were in rubble, and people were dying, and a lot of people were homeless. So I spent 3 months after the explosion in Beirut. I was working with an NGO because basically it's young people who kind of like helped people who were, like the grandma on the 5th floor. I remember this grandma in a very famous street in Lebanon. She was looking so destroyed. She was okay physically, but her whole house was gone. And you don't have a government who comes and like fix your glass or fix whatever happened. And it was just these young people with an NGO that had been built for a previous tragedy. That is helping out on the streets and trying, to fix things, noting what they need, the glass, the whatever, and like helping out. So it's really a community helping each other. It was really tough, and I deferred the term at the London Film School because I wasn't able to like do a film. And after 6 or 7 months, I decided to write the story about the cat because I thought it was such a good metaphor, because when I was looking for my cat, I would see those cats, one of them limping, one of them,
They're
with
everywhere.
one eye.
Oh my God, there's so many of them all up, and it feels like such a layer of the city is the cats.
Yeah. The cats in Beirut are like really, they own the city. But kind of
beautiful as well. Like it's kind of this, it's strange. They're stray and they have these, deformations or things like that. But there was something kind of beautiful in them as well. But also a little, there was something there. There was something very vibrant there, I thought.
I felt like there was a metaphor between us and them at that point. I felt like I was looking, instead of like, I didn't want to show necessarily the destruction for people because it felt a bit invasive at that point.
Yeah,
and
you wanted some mirror for that.
Yes, some mirror that would make you think more than like tell you.
Yeah,
and I'm more usually I'm more interested in that kind of cinema that don't necessarily show you, but makes you think and makes you wonder and gives, like, you put a bit of yourself in it as well.
Absolutely. And I think there's something to be said. You spoke clearly, and again I'm going back to the Q&A, about kind of narrative versus documentary, and I think the interviewer asked you, why didn't you just do a documentary? And I think you had quite a good answer for it in regards to narrative having some, maybe I'll let you speak on it a little bit more. I forget exactly what you said. Maybe you can remind me.
I didn't want to do a documentary because I thought it was too early. The explosion had just happened. It had been a year, and I just didn't want to do a documentary. I wanted the cast and crew who all have lived the explosion to put within something from themselves.
Yes, an interpretation, right?
Exactly, an interpretation into these fictional characters. Yeah. I mean, yes, they are inspired by people I know, by, my generation, by a lot of things, but these are fictional characters. And sometimes I find fiction to have a therapeutical effect. If I had done maybe like a documentary, it would have been, I don't know, but I just felt that fiction was more appropriate, and that we could put energy and like our struggles and our, anger at that point into a work of fiction.
I completely understand that. And, LFS having this narrative bent to it, I think that was really an important point for me, is like taking kind of maybe ideas that were a bit adrift or this or that and kind of learning more about what it was from narrative that I think is helpful, and I think that can be so helpful for communicating with an audience as well. You know, documentary can be very fun, and it's still that narrative idea, but it's just the context is so different, right? You felt this certain. I think that's a really palpable way of describing it. Almost is feels like you're taking a little bit more in a documentary sometimes and pointing that camera
from real people,
right? And then exactly, and then trying to figure something out in the edit.
Yeah.
Something feels wrong with it. It's so strange.
Especially that soon after.
Yeah.
You know, something felt, for me at least, I get if someone else would feel differently, but for me it felt too invasive. It felt like the story isn't really about the explosion. The story is about a young girl who doesn't know what she wants to do. And it was my feeling, and it was mirroring a lot also of the actress' feeling, Marilyn Nahman, which is an amazing actress, and today also a singer. And she embodied the character so well because she knows her. And we know her as like women growing up in Beirut. We know this character. We know her feelings, how she behaves, and how angry she is at that point. So yeah, and when you spoke about documentary, and so I took a couple of, like, the camera that we were using was a documentary camera. It wasn't, so we didn't use like those fancy Alexas or anything fancy. Because I felt that me and the cinematographer, Fatma, we felt it was so out of place. We wanted to be a bit invisible in that sense, taking some aspect from the documentary medium into this fiction, but still keeping it a fiction, because it's not about the explosion, and it is about something larger. The explosion is a symptom. It's of something way bigger, and you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself to kind of get to the idea of what you said. Let's talk more about Sunsets on Beirut and some of the Interfilm Berlin, Tripoli Film Festival, Berlin International Women Film Festival. It was at Marché du Film, which different places were at, so I have that same experience of showing the film there. Grand Prix at, keep going here, Grand Prix at Les Nuits Mediterranean. So I'm going to completely butcher that, de court métrage. Best short film at All Harris. I'm sorry, All Harris Film Festival and Tampere Film Festival. That's
and Kursfilmtage.
Say it again.
Kursfilmtage.
Wow,
they were the two I think biggest, and they came at the end.
That's amazing.
Which was really interesting with Interfilm, and I mean they were all, in my opinion, big in their own sense.
Yeah, Interfilm is amazing.
Yeah.
What was it like showing the film? Where did you go? Were you able to screen it? Were you able to go with the screening someplace? I'm curious kind of what the reception was. I'd love to hear about a little bit of that.
So I was able to go to a lot of those screenings, not all of them, unfortunately, because not all of them also you need a bit of a budget to travel and to do all of that. And I was already preparing my first feature, so I didn't go to all of them. But for example, in Interfilm, I went, and to my biggest surprise, the audience was laughing at the jokes. I felt that the audience related to the characters, which for me was my biggest win, because to do a story that is specific about Lebanon, because at that time I wasn't, when I was making, sorry, I'm going to change a bit the course of the sentence, but when I was making The Sunset on Beirut, I wasn't necessarily making it for a foreign audience. I almost didn't care at that point. I was so angry about, my house being destroyed and the people in my country like suffering so much, and I didn't even want to go back to London. I was in a very dark place, and so for me to have shown it even in, one country other than Lebanon was for me already a win. And that people related to it, I thought was great, because I thought we made, as a crew and a cast, a film that was relatable no matter where you come from. And then this is when I started to realize that these are the kinds of films that I want to make. But that was later on. So Interfilm was great. I went as well to Les Nuits Méditerranéennes, but we screened it at Cannes, at the Marché du Film, which was also an amazing screening. I think having people speak to you after the screening is just a gem. It's so nice to have people like, engaging with the film and saying how they felt about. I got like some Instagram messages at point that someone from Taiwan was relating so much to the character, and that she felt extremely she felt like she was living what the character was living at the moment, even though she's not from Beirut, but she's from Taiwan. So it's really for me, that's the biggest win, and that's why I think filmmakers love to do cinema, because it's very lonely for a long period of time. And then you have these screenings and these moments where you feel like you're showing your work, and it's extremely scary. I always hide in my seat when my film is passing. It's really difficult. My heart is beating really fast. I almost want to disappear. But yeah, I think you have to make films you're uncomfortable showing.
Yeah. Couldn't say it better myself. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like you kind of put these thoughts and ideas from the specific region, and it's amazing kind of the dots that light up in various parts of the world, and there's all these connections in so many different ways. So that's amazing. Sunsets in Beirut. So we've got the grad film, but I think what I want to do is, before we kind of get to future projects, things coming up, you're preparing a feature, Jellyfish. The separate. Jellyfish is the short, a feature is separate, so we'll talk about those separately. I'd like to hear a little bit more about your experience at London Film School and what it was like. You made the decision, you went. You met some really amazing people there. It's just a great international group of people. But can you tell me about maybe one experience, whether it's your Term 4 film, right, Mummy Blue? I would love to just hear a little bit about something from that time period that was helpful for you in making your grad film and continuing on. And then we can talk about some of those.
Oh my God, so many things. Where to start? I will maybe start by telling you what I did in a couple of terms. So Term 3, I worked as a cinematographer for Neza's documentary. Nice. And then Term 4...
And Niza Elias, she was on the podcast as well. Great DOP. You guys did a music video together.
We worked together on everything.
Yes, right. So she will be... Is the idea that she would be working on Jellyfish per se?
So Jellyfish, she will be a cinematographer consultant.
Nice.
Working closely with Karina.
Cool.
On Underbelly.
Your sister.
Yes, my sister. The best.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I just feel like I want to make sure everyone kind of says because then we understand. But it's like cool.
No, so I will explain more about the relationship between my sister and I, and Jellyfish, and also Neza. But Neza, yes, is a partner that I found at the London Film School, which I work very, very closely with, and I collaborate a lot on a lot of projects till now. So in Term 3, we worked on the documentary together. Term 4, I directed Mummy Blue. And I think this, for me, was the most eye-opening, really insane experience.
Can you tell me a little bit about the story, just so we can get the audience kind of like in there, and then we can talk about some of what you learned?
So the story is about Dima, a 17-year-old who's just turning 18, who is basically fantasizing about the neighbor next door. And she has a very kind of complicated relationship with her mother. And as you can already tell, I think my stories are not very plot driven necessarily, and more character explorations. And I think Mummy Blue embodies a lot that. It kind of speaks about the relationship between a mother and her daughter, and how traumas can be inherited from one generation to the other without really necessarily wanting to, and even trauma from a country that you've never lived in. So that was a bit what I wanted to explore with that film. And in Term 4, for your audience who aren't London Film School, we have to shoot either on film or on digital. And of course, I chose on film because I was so excited to shoot on film for the first time in my life, and maybe the last. Hopefully not, but maybe. I mean, now it's coming back. But
we'll see.
But we'll see. We need a big budget for that. And so I shot on film in black and white, and so we had a very limited amount of film rolls that we could use. So you can't sit there and have 20 takes. So it taught me a lot about discipline on set. It was really eye-opening. So knowing which shot you want, knowing how many takes you can do. And I had a great cinematographer, Mara, She's also at LFS. I don't know if you know her, but
I don't know if I do, no.
She's just amazing. She was so present and, you know, like giving everything to the film. And you need people like this on a film who would give like an arm and a leg to the film.
Yeah.
And so that was that kind of shoot. It was really stressful because I was directing and it's my dream.
Yeah.
But it was, I really learned a lot. Planning, execution. We also had to build the set.
Yeah.
So I think 80% of the film is in the studio and 20% is outdoor in real locations.
Was this at 24 Shelton Street that you built the studio?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes,
24 Shelton
yes.
Street being kind of the London Film School, kind of a warehouse building right in Covent Garden there. So
yes.
Yeah, it's got many films made in there, studios made. So
yeah.
Cool.
Yes,
Cool.
It was really great, and building the set was an experience that I never had since. I've never built a set.
Yeah, it makes
like
you
from
think.
scratch.
Yeah, and it's so cool because there's so much that it can offer in making it exactly what you want. As long as you can find
the wallpaper
materials.
and also working with black and white.
Yeah,
it taught me how black the black is, how white the white should be, the gradients of color, even though there are no colors, the gradients of like black to white. So if you put like a blue shirt, what's the difference between putting a blue shirt on the actor than putting a green one? All of these little details were extremely eye-opening, and I think for me that was the biggest term where I learned a lot.
Cool.
Then in term 5 I was a cinematographer on James' project, and term 6
James Rush. James Rush. Okay, cool. I don't know if I know him as well, but that's really cool. Yeah, so that's great. So you got the director and cinematographer role in term 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. I've got a sense of a little bit of like your experiences at London Film School. I mean, directing a 35 millimeter film, that's really going to just totally shape your mind for doing your grad film and films you want to do in the future. And it sounds like you kind of started to understand what drives you in storytelling with characters. So I really appreciate that. Now, we've spoken about your grad film a little bit. So what I'd like to talk about is, I think we should just do it in chronological order, is Jellyfish.
Yeah.
The next short film. So we've talked quite a bit about this. I've been doing, I guess you'd call it some producing from here in the UK, trying to, and I think we actually should talk about it. We should talk about the difficulties of it and all this stuff. But why don't you tell me about a little bit of the idea for Jellyfish, who you're working with on Jellyfish, and then we can talk about what we've worked together on in just like because I think it's important and something people would be interested in. Yeah.
I'm going to start before Jellyfish is when my sister came with the idea, because it's my sister's script initially. The first draft was Karina's script, and she came to me in 2022 or 2023 with like this idea of this mother, and it's inspired by our mother in 2006 when we escaped the war in the car. So the story is about this mother from southern Lebanon who escapes with her 2 daughters in order to get to a beach resort in the north. And we follow her whole journey, and it's also a bit of a commentary on and an exploration. I don't like the word commentary so much, but it's more of an exploration and a questioning of our country and the division within, and also the division and the real cost of war on motherhood and children. But this was inspired by our experience in 2006 when my mom came to pick us up to leave to the mountains, not a beach resort, but to the mountains. And the whole way through, she was putting on some music from the 60s and the 70s and pretending everything was so fine, even though, 20 minutes later, the glass was shaking. We couldn't grab any of our clothes and toys that were next to the windows. Something was extremely wrong. I was 12 years old. My sister was 3 years younger, 9. So we both lived that day extremely differently. My sister was completely believing at that time that, everything is fine. Like, why is Daniela crazy, And I was thinking my mom is lying to us. Every decision she would take to stop and get bread, it was the wrong decision. And, there was a big queue on bread.
Did you feel like you were like as the older sister, like a protect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like almost the second mom. Like I know better, and I think that's why I think
like checking her.
Yeah, like you should do that, not that.
I'm the eldest as well, and I think there is that instinct. Yeah. Interesting. Continue. I'm sorry.
It's an instinct that my mom hated because I was extremely
You're
stubborn. Yeah, I was a very stubborn kid, and I made my mom
right?
crazy.
You want to be protective in any situation that might, harm your sister or her.
And you feel it at 12. You feel it in your body. Something is going, wrong.
It's very visceral, right? To protect yourself is that's the most human, one of the most human reactions you can have.
And like this memory of these three, two girls and a mother, old woman in the car, like escaping this place they've all known to another place they have no idea about. Like this is a bit the memory Karina came with.
Yeah.
And the idea that the jellyfish, I'm not gonna spoil it too much, but basically that related to the idea of a jellyfish that you will understand when you watch the film.
Yeah. Leave the cliffhanger a little bit. Yeah.
But yeah, she came to me with that script, and I thought, it's a great script. And she said, I want to co-write it and co-direct it together because it's our story, basically.
Love it.
And then a couple of months, we started writing it as if it was 2006. And a couple of months after the war erupted in Lebanon in 2024. So then we decided to change the date of the film and make it in 2024, especially so to make it to the most recent war, especially that in that recent war, the sound of the drone was 24/7 above our head while we were writing the script in Lebanon.
My God.
So there was this feeling of this new modern warfare that affects you in very various ways that is extremely suffocating. Having a drone above your head 24/7 can make you go crazy. It's really, really something tough to have the same vibration. And that was something that we thought was we wanted to speak about more in 2024.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be inspired by our story, but to create a completely, just a bit like The Sunset on Beirut, to put our emotions that are deeply personal, but into fictional characters, and speak about a place that we hold dear, which is the south of Lebanon, which I don't know if a lot of people know, even from Lebanon people don't know, but most of Lebanon eats fruits and vegetables from the south. So we are very linked to the south. Yes, yet a lot of the population, not a lot now, but at the time, a long time ago, was feeling divided, as if southern Lebanon was a country on its own. No, it's not. We're a very tiny country, so it's surely not. But yeah. That's about it.
That's great. That's really, really, it's interesting to hear the progression of the film and where it came from and how it's progressed so far. I want to talk a little bit about making this thing, right? We've spoken about making it.
Yeah.
So the idea is that obviously with an outbreak of war, that would be one thing to consider. I'm thinking about funding, right?
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this grant from various grants, BFI-oriented grants. We were talking about the first take. I'm going to blank on the name. Future Take.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that because this is a relatively new grant. If I'm not up on all of, I don't have like a 360 on everything. This is a new grant. It's tricky though because there's lots of different stipulations for the director, for the writer, not so much the writer, but for the producer. The producer needs to have made a film of at least £20,000 recently. The director needs to have 2 films that have made various quite high...
Yeah, not even quite high festivals. So the main problem for me was the director should have... there is a list, and the festivals have to be on that list.
Right.
And 2 of those films.
Right.
So I think that when I saw that, I thought that maybe we should put our time and effort someplace else.
Yeah.
like maybe the BFI fund would be a bit better, because this specific future takes one. In general, I'm just going to add this, that in general, no one teaches you how hard it is to actually make a film.
Yeah.
Then when you have a script that you want to make, the struggles begin.
Yeah.
And finding money is one of the toughest, I think, for me at least, because my films are in Lebanon, the toughest time is to find money for a film.
Yep.
So but let's continue on future things.
Exactly. Like my thought is just because I think it's interesting to kind of look at this as like a subject or a case example, because the idea is that this is a particularly new one, and the reasons might be myriad that BFI introduced it. I can probably guess a few, but it offers quite a bit of money. I think between like 60 and 90K. So like a relatively big budget for a short film. And it's interesting because, there are other BFI grants that we could apply to as well. But I think it's just something interesting to talk about, because I think you don't, or at least for me, you don't sometimes hear about maybe some of these newer things that are thrown in there.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example, because this is a film that I personally believe deserves to be made for a myriad reasons. But it's interesting to see what comes up against that when you have a script you really believe in.
Yeah.
Now, my thing is, I think it's interesting because then you start to talk about the filmmaking and what your vision is, right? Because I don't know. Maybe you want to go down a similar route you did with the Sunsets on Beirut, where you do something a little bit more free with a camera that is less, like this, like, ridiculously expensive, where you need a bigger crew to work with it. So I'm curious, like, what your, I think this is a cool conversation, because it's cool to be able to share this a little bit, like how do you see it as something similar to the Sunsets in Beirut in some ways? I'd just love to hear kind of like that struggle and how you kind of do a little bit of backbending to make it work, but then you also go after the financing you need to make the film.
Yeah. So I didn't mention something, that Karina will be the cinematographer on the film, as well as the co-writer and co-director with me. So it's like
lots of roles.
So that's already a big budget cut.
Yeah, I guess,
but
good way to look at it.
Yeah. But I think that, so the thing is, Karina and I have spoken about this in a way that we will decide also the way we make the film, also based, so we know that we want to make the film in the guerrilla style filmmaking. So we already know that we don't want big cameras in the middle of, rubble. We want something that can give us the effect that we need in those scenes, but that also is, works with the subject.
Yeah.
And I find that choosing the camera is also, that's my way of looking at it, has to also do with the subject. If the camera is always on a tripod and it's those very, symmetrical and like very composed shots with a specific depth of field, you need specific lenses and a specific camera. And so the story dictates sometimes I find that the story tells me how I'm going to shoot it. I don't necessarily tell the story like that. It's a bit like of a game for me, between me and the story.
It's a great way to look at it.
And I'm the kind of directors that prioritize storytelling, and what works for the story works in terms of lens and works in terms of camera, not the other way around. But that's one way of looking at it. I think there are many different types of directors who work in many different ways. So that's a bit the way I look at it. But in the meantime, we have with two also my producers in Lebanon, Maria Calaban and Cynthia Sher, whom are amazing, because we've been together on this project for almost a year now.
How did you link up with them?
So I was invited for Kumra in Doha. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's a mix between a market and an invitation festival. It's a very specific thing, because we wrote the film with the support of the Doha Short Film Lab.
Yes.
And yes, for your audience who are just starting, I think in filmmaking, labs are for me so important.
Yeah.
I find them. I know that a lot of people write without labs, but for me, they've come with a lot of support. And even after finishing the lab, I have a lot of contacts at the Doha Film Institute, which I value a lot, because whenever I'm in distress and I don't know what to do about a project, I know that I can always contact them and they would give me the most honest advice. And I think that this gives you, after film school, a big cocoon into putting yourself in. And I still apply to labs with my feature, with my shorts, with I just love it. But I have to say an advice that I've been given that I agree with. You shouldn't spend your time, especially on features, jumping from one lab to the other into infinite labs. I think be very strategic into which labs you want to go to. Labs that are usually interested in the kind of stories you want to tell. So if you're into comedy, unfortunately there aren't a lot of labs, but they are very specific. I have a friend, Daniel Christopherson. He always struggles to get into those labs because they don't take a lot of comedies, and that's very sad, because we need comedies.
Comedy lab, that would be good to have. Yeah.
There is a couple, but not as much as for drama. And so being specific about the kind of lab you want to go into, knowing which mentors you think would help you best, but go into labs. I really recommend this experience. It's fantastic. It also, you read each other's scripts, you know what's happening.
You make friends.
You make a lot of friends.
Because it's not school oriented as much, and school we help each other as well, but I think school generally has a few more people attached to it, and these labs generally have a few less, and it's just such a nice networking tool. I think the Linz International Film Festival has a lab, and I just completed that, and it was a great experience, primarily online, and each one's different is I think important as well. There's there's definitely month-long courses where you go to the location or you do this or that. This was primarily online with a small residency at Cannes and a small residency in Linz, in Austria, and I think the idea is that it's definitely like a lifeline in a way. It's really nice to be to pitch your film idea, feature, whatever, in person. You're generally there with lots of other people pitching ideas, and albeit maybe slightly competitive at times, especially if there's something on the line, like some type of grant or something like that. The grant is kind of like a dessert or something like that for potentially being able to pitch to a lot of people, and also just a communication with festivals and developing a relationship with festivals. I think that's how I saw it just recently with this one, was just this nice, here's who I am. Not really tied to school. Here's who I am, and here's the types of films.
And an experience in public speaking, an experience in pitching yourself, pitching your film, making filmmaker friends, because filmmakers are quite isolated. I think artists, in a way, they work very especially writers, directors, or
because we want to have our own voice, right? So if we're always hanging out with each other, then we would potentially might have more of a unified thing going on. So there is a bit of that struggle, at least in my mind.
No, it is a lonely it is a lonely job. I would say, at least I find it lonely. So going on those labs and meeting filmmakers who feel as lonely as you is great.
Yeah, I get it.
Because we can be all lonely together.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. With that being said,
but that's how I'm just going to continue for Cynthia. That's how I met Cynthia, because we were doing those round tables where you meet producers. And we clicked, and she loved the film because she's a mother and she's lived the war in Lebanon, and she was like, I want to produce this. This is great. Yep. And we clicked. She has this very motherly, energy, and always wants to. And I think for a producer, it's so important. As a director, I find that the producer wants to protect you, and I think that Cynthia and Maria also have that. Because the director is full of doubt all the time, and it's good for a director to admit that he has doubt. Yeah, because doubt means it's a human. It means he's alive or she's alive.
There's something about I think it's the filmmaker gene in us that when we're rolling a little bit, we're not necessarily people that want to be in front of the camera all the time as directors, you know what I mean? Like, that isn't my first preference. You know, I don't really choose to be an actor per se, but I think as soon as you kind of start rolling, it's really nice. It's just
I think I haven't told you, but maybe you don't know. And during LFS, I acted in everyone's films.
Oh, did you?
You've never seen me in
Oh my God, no, I haven't seen any.
But
no,
that
you
was...
have an acting bug. I didn't know that. I do too. I acted in a couple. I did an acting class when I first got to London, and then did a few. That's cool. You were acting quite a bit.
I love it. Just a bit. I think
can see it.
My boyfriend Leo, he thinks that's completely crazy and that I'm a bad actress.
Damn.
It's horrible. And I always feel like, no, come on, if I get like an acting coach, I could do it. I kind of get his point because he truly thinks that, which I believe too, that acting is a craft, and
oh my God,
that like, no, you can't be just
so
an actor.
Difficult. I think it's one of the most difficult jobs, if you ask me. Like, but the idea is, I've always thought that like, if you really are able to achieve something with acting, what a skill to have, like, because it's not like a camera and directing as well, I guess, where you're
your body,
but with acting it's your body, and it's like I guess it's maybe you could kind of relate it to dance, but the thing with acting is like you can kind of be like a chameleon, right? You could like go one place and have a certain persona or a certain way of wanting to present yourself, and then be in another place, and it's that control over like who you are, which is amazing. It's always perplexed me. I think that's why I like directing, because it's kind of like, okay, you're going to be a space cadet or a cowboy or a swamp thing or something like that, and then it's kind of like, all right, so you're able to just go there, you know what I mean? Like, you're able to just kind
go
of
to
like,
that place.
And then I think what's fun for the director is to like allow that, be the first person to say, go. You know what I mean? And then I think that idea, when you hear an actor say, I feel free. Yeah. Especially with the cameras around and the DP kind of going like, you put that over there, stick it, and put the mask on. You know what I mean? You're all done up, and then you can still look at them and go like, and now I feel free to do this. Because then I think it's funny, because it's almost like you let the act write I think it's Bong Joon-ho who says like, a lot of the acting or like your work as a director is in the casting, right? Yeah. You kind of get that actor that you go, I believe in this person so much, and then they can go and do.
I think if you get the casting right, I've only realized this after the Sunset on Beirut, because for me, the Sunset on Beirut, I love every person in the cast. I think that
they're cool.
I think
the
I think
motorbike scenes is really nice.
They made the film. Pio and Marilyn and Joe and even the extras. They made the film.
Extras are so key. Yes, so key for like that little background noise, that little like. I noticed it for like a what was it, like a dining room scene? It was like a scene where like two characters out on like a dinner date or something like that, and just having them, and then to speak to them as well and say, you're not just here filling space. Like you two are having a conversation about like some shoes you just bought or something like that, and you two are having like a first date, and you give them just a little to go on. Yeah,
and that's it, just a little, because when you have very sensitive actors in front of you, like honestly, Marilyn and Pio were that for me. They inspire you. Like Marilyn would grab the script and Pio as well and tell me, I don't think this. They changed sentences in the script.
Totally.
We rewrote the script together, and I think after that was my first time kind of rewriting with actors a script, and I think I would always do it. I would never have the script and say this is it, because they, it needs to come off as a second skin for them. It needs to be their role, and especially if you have casted them. So these are the people the actors you trust, and the actors that it's not only you trust, but you see their range. Yeah. And I think Marilyn and Pio had a very big range of emotions and aura that they had together, but also like alone on screen. So
absolutely. It's that casting that's so important. That's why we do what we do. We really like it. It's fun. It's magical, and then the shaping of it and feeling like, oh, I'm not just in this, because that writing directing thing really is attractive, and you want to try and appreciate that, but an actor is going to come in there, and it's like almost like they're the front line. I think about it in a weird way, where it's like they're the ones that believe the story even maybe a little bit more than you do.
Yeah, and I find the writing, for example, this painful step that I love, that I should do in order to get to this happy place,
Right.
which is directing actors and like being on set. And it's almost like I wouldn't. The thing is, I don't like writing with a co-writer up until now.
Same.
I don't know if it will change in the future, but up until now, it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Because maybe I'm a bit of a control freak. I don't know if you are as well.
Yo, for sure.
But the story, they come from such a personal place that they need to be the way, so that I have no regrets.
Yes.
I feel like I would have regrets if someone
Yeah.
It's maybe I will change my mind.
No. It's super well said, that idea of no regrets when you're writing, and like this idea of like, it's important that it come from my head, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that it be kind of like a fully formed idea, because otherwise it's like, and I think it's that writing and directing thing that's extra special, you know, or directing and DPing, or directing and producing, or something like that. Like there's all different manifestations of it, but there's something really nice about it and very exploratory, like, or something like that, where you just feel like, ooh, yeah, like I really like to work this muscle. There's something to it. I don't know, it's really hard to describe.
It's painful, but it's beautiful.
Yes, that's it. You did it. Okay, so I think we should end with the feature and talk a little bit about the feature. Are you up for that?
Yeah, 100%.
We have more to talk about with Jellyfish?
No, I think should we go back to before we stopped, because I was speaking about Cynthia and
yes, please,
the Doha. So after Doha, it was a bit about the fundings. We applied to a lot of funds. We got refused to a lot, and we got into two pitch sessions. One of them which we won at the Tripoli Film Festival, and the
amazing.
other
Congrats.
is next month. Karina has been pitching those while I focus on my feature as well and on the preparation for the short. So yeah, it's a good idea to end on the feature.
Yeah, no, I love it. You guys are hard at work.
Yeah.
Now, Corinna right now, she's in London as well.
Yes.
And she's working. She's gaffing. I know she's crewing a lot as well, and just busy.
Yeah, she's busy a lot. She works a lot with Neza as well.
Cool.
They're like my two sisters for me. My two cinematographer sisters.
I love it.
But Karina has a lot of directing in her. Like, she is a good director. And she doesn't want to direct. She loves cinematography. She loves the camera. But she likes to direct projects that she has written and that she feels very passionate about. So that's why we're doing Jellyfish together. And that's why she's going to also be the cinematographer. And she's been doing a lot of gaffer work, a lot of cinematography.
Yeah. Cam up as well. I've seen her around. Yeah, I think actually the first time I met Corinna was sparking on the film I was producing in term 4.
Yeah. She's amazing because she's great to be around. She's really. I'm not that.
Oh, she's awesome.
I'm more moody. Karina isn't.
That's funny. She's chill. She's very chill. Like what I would say is, and then I remember in term of a film I have very close to my heart was a term 4 film I was helping Alitza Marielle on, and she was sparking. No, you know what? She was producing. No, I think Rodolfo was producing. Yeah. She had some role and was helping lighting, and it was great. It was a great thing because it was like, you know, and the DOP was Rastin.
Oh, I love Rastin.
Was DOP. He was DOP. And Alitza was gaffer, and I just had a really good time on the shoot. We were shooting film. Lara was the director.
Yes, Rastin and Lara are my two favorite people in Karina's world. I no offense to all of her other friends, but they're like great. My favorites. I mean, from the London friends, because if the Lebanese friends now hear me, they're gonna be like, "What the fuck?"
No, they're super creative. They're just like
they're
true
amazing.
filmmakers. They care a lot, and it was really nice being a part of that group.
And Rastin, Lara, and Karina work extremely well together, and it's also a reminder of how when you find your people around, then like having constant collaboration helps a lot. Like with Neza and the music video, we made this music video for no money at all. We sneaked into the underground. We made those like really high budget shots. Yeah. Even though it was like for no money, but it's because we all believed in it. There was also Casey who was producing it. Who was also at LFS. And
Nice, Casey.
Jafar as well, because if he hears this, and I didn't mention his name, and Jay.
It was that was a really cool music video. Shot on film, is that correct?
Yes, it's on 16.
On 16, I know Nisa loves it.
Yeah.
And it's got a really cool story. This is kind of relationship oriented.
Yeah.
Love your lead actress in it.
She's amazing.
Yeah. She was. I could tell you guys were in the zone, and I saw you made a cameo.
Yeah.
And you guys went to. It must have been a boardwalk somewhere.
Yes.
I don't know. Were you in Southend on Sea, maybe?
Yeah, it is.
I knew it.
Yeah.
And you
well spotted.
Yeah. I saw you in there. It's really lovely. I'll link it. I'm going to link all of your details, maybe even some of the Q&As, your website, all those things in the YouTube. So.
And maybe it's worth mentioning that Short of the Week is now, that Sunset on Beirut is now available on Short of the Week.
Amazing.
So that you can be able to watch it online now.
I'll put that number 1 on the link so people can check it out and watch all these great films that we've been chatting about. So let's get to this feature idea. I'd love to hear more about it. We haven't talked much about this, so you can fill me in a little bit as much as you'd like.
So I won't pitch it so much because I'm still discovering the story and where it's going to lead. Maybe I'll just give a bit of, the process, which was a quite painful one, because this was extremely personal story about my teenage years and growing up in Lebanon, and a group of friends who are all rebels and all want to, live a bigger life than what they're given, and they're eager for the world. And this post-war generation who's constantly asking questions, but is also wants, to just smoke joints and drink and is so eager to grow up and within this Beirut context in 2006. It's kind of, it has a love story angle in it. I won't give too many details because I'm still discovering the story, but maybe the process about writing has been for me. I wrote for the first year all alone, but it was only in a treatment form and trying to discover what I want to say. I knew that I wanted to speak about this time, this period of time in 2006 in Lebanon, and I knew that I wanted to speak about teenagers, and it was basically inspired by my world with my friends as teenagers in Beirut. So these are the two elements that I already knew that I wanted to tackle. And then writing was, for a year I was just casually writing whenever I wanted to, and removing stuff from my memory and from the things that interests me and the themes that interest me. And then I got with this treatment into the Doha Film Institute feature film lab.
Oh, shit.
So I'm really blessed to have them as well, because I was with them on the short film lab and now the feature film lab. So they're my to-go lab.
Cool. That's really awesome.
And now I'm still in it, in the feature film lab.
Super cool, because the short film lab has
ended.
Has closed.
And also the short film lab, I was so blessed to have teachers like these. So if you Antoine Waked and Britta, they're both so amazing. So whenever you apply to a lab, it's so important to check the mentors and see that your minds kind of fit, and you can see that from the previous films they've done, or the lab itself.
I think what you're saying, doing the research into the type of lab that's right for you. There's so many out there, and it's really about doing a little bit of research, and it can be very helpful for you. That's really amazing. I feel like we got to do another podcast soon, because there's so much more to talk about. But I really think that this kind of summarizes in a nice way a lot of the work that you've been up to. I mean, again, there's so much more to talk about, and I'd love to talk more about the feature and where you're getting your ideas from and this and that. But just for the sake of this episode, Daniela Stephan, I want to thank you so much for being on the United Filmmaker podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. It was amazing. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the United Film Podcast. We are a self-funded organization looking to broaden and diversify the filmmaking culture here in London. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast. It is through our listeners that we gain recognition and are able to fund new initiatives with this podcast. Thank you.